The Galactic Federation had a rule: never let humans near the fire. They cataloged the species as soft apex predators, a polite term for fragile things with poor impulse control, soft flesh, softer discipline. Their files noted Earth's turbulent history, wars over dirt and deities, art made from blood and rust, a knack for weaponizing everything, even laughter. But the Federation's equations couldn't quantify the flicker in a human's eyes when they struck a match, the way their teeth gleamed, not in hunger, but in something worse: curiosity. When the Krang issued their challenge, the Federation panicked. The lava-born titans had never lost a Deathworld duel. Their terms were simple: send champions to Planet Nightmare, a festering orb of acid geysers and tectonic rage. Let the weak be purged. Let the strong be known. The humans, predictably, laughed. They selected no champions, no generals. Instead, they sent a disgraced pyromaniac, a surgeon who'd rebuilt her lungs from scrap, an engineer who'd forgotten his own name, and a girl who still blushed at bad jokes. The Federation's emissaries pleaded for strategy, for sense. The humans packed flamethrowers, duct tape, and a bag of marshmallows. Why? The Asiliarch ambassador had demanded, its voice a swarm of wasps. The girl grinned. For the vibes. As the dropship vanished into the quantum haze, the Krang's war drums echoed across the void. The Federation braced for extinction. They missed the flicker in the humans' eyes, not fear, but a hunger they couldn't name. The oldest hunger. The kind that built civilizations in deserts and symphonies in bomb craters. The kind that looked at a hellscape, named Nightmare, and whispered, "Let's make s'mores." Chapter 1. The rain over Camp Cinder smelled like burnt plastic. Sergeant Major Hank O'Reilly inhaled the acrid tang, letting it linger in his scarred lungs like communion smoke. Somewhere beyond the razor wire fences, the Everglades hissed and slithered, a primordial chorus mocking the prefab barracks and their flickering floodlights. The Galactic Federation's emblem, a DNA helix strangling a sword, hung sodden above the gate. Hank spat at it. The gesture was muscle memory now. They'd given him Lucille, at least. The flamethrower guitar leaned against his bunk, her steel body pockmarked from 100 battles. His fingers twitched toward her neck, craving the dissonant purr of overdriven strings, the kickback of ignited fuel. But the meds they'd pumped into him after Jakarta still dulled the fire. Too much, the shrinks had said. Too bright, too hungry. As if a man could cauterize his own guilt without burning. The summons came at 0300. A hologram flickered to life in the barracks. General Vargas, her face a topographical map of old wars. The Krang issued a Deathworld challenge, she said. Hank didn't flinch. He'd seen the vid-spiked aliens bench-pressing asteroids, their lava-cracked skin glowing like forge embers. Ultimate survivors, the xenoanthropologists called them. Hank called them pyromaniacs without poetry. They've chosen Nightmare, Vargas continued. The planet's hologram rotated, a festering orb of acid geysers and tectonic tantrums. Standard duel rules. Last team standing claims supremacy. We're sending you. Hank's laugh was a dry cough. Why not SEALs, Rangers? Because they want fire. Vargas's gaze dropped to Lucille. And you understand ashes. The hangar buzzed with the wrong kind of silence. Engineers in hazmat suits loaded crates marked Class 3 incendiary onto the dropship, while a gaggle of Federation observers chirped and clipped Galactic Common. Hank's squad waited in the shadow of the ship's ramp. Doc Rivas, the medic, her cybernetic lungs wheezing like bellows. She peeled an apple with a bone saw, the blade trembling. Chief Nguyen, the engineer, dismantling a plasma torch with monastic focus. His left eye was a milky void, Jakarta's souvenir. Private Cole, the rookie sniper, 19, with a cowlick and a habit of reloading her rifle during hymns. Cole met Hank's stare, her cheeks flushed. Christ, he'd seen that look before, on boys who confused arson with artistry. on privates who thought martyrdom made love letters. He tightened Lucille's fuel hose, letting the pain in his wrists drown the memory. Vargas approached, tossing Hank a marshmallow bag. Command's idea, psychological warfare. Hank crushed one in his palm. The sugar stuck like pulverized bone. We're gonna roast them. No, but the Krang, they don't play, they don't feast. Show them we do both. The dropship screamed through the thermosphere. Hank strapped into his harness, Lucille across his lap. Cole fumbled with her buckles. Her fingers brushed his thigh, a tremor masquerading as accident. You ever been off-world, sir? Once. Jakarta's sky had been crimson that day. The schoolhouse smoldered. Children's laughter warped by flame. What's it like? Dying, I mean. Hank thumbed Lucille's ignition. The pilot light hissed. Depends on the song you're humming. Planet Nightmare didn't bother with theatrics. No ominous music. No swirling storms. Just a silent sulphurous desert, where the sky was the color of a healing bruise. The squad stepped onto basalt flats that crackled like pigskin underfoot. Doc Rivas knelt, scraping a rock. Her augmetic lungs whined. Basalt, traces of hydrofluoric acid. Don't touch your face, Nguyen snorted. Tell that to the air. The horizon rippled. Hank's nape prickled. The old animal sense, the one that outran IEDs and ex-wives. He unshouldered Lucille. Gazer, move. They ran. The ground erupted 10 yards back, a column of green-tinged acid punching skyward. Cole stumbled. Hank yanked her up, her ribs sharp under his grip. Too young, he thought. Too light. The Krang found them at dusk. 3 silhouettes materialized from the heat haze, 8 feet tall, obsidian spikes jutting like broken cathedral spires. Their leader rasped in Galactic common, voice like grinding glass. You, our prey. Hank strummed Lucille. A minor chord shrieked through the wasteland. Nah, we're guests. The Krang tilted its head, forged in lava, schooled in void war. Yet this sound, baffled it. Hank smiled. Fire he could share. That night, as acid winds clawed at the energy dome, Cole whispered, "Why'd you say yes to this?" Hank cleaned Lucille's nozzles. The marshmallows glowed in the camp stove, grotesque and hypnotic. Redemption's a pyramid scheme, kid. You either recruit or burn. And her? Cole nodded at Doc Rivas, asleep with her bone saw clutched to her chest. She's here to bury us. Nguyen's here to forget. You? Cole's boot nudged his. To see if heroes are real. Hank tossed a marshmallow into the stove. It blackened, twisted, bloomed into flame. There's your hero. By dawn the first trial began. Chapter 2. Planet Nightmare's dawn arrived as a slow bleed, a jaundiced light seeping through the ashen sky, revealing fissures in the basalt crust that glowed like veins of rotten neon. Sergeant Major Hank O'Reilly crouched at the edge of the energy dome, his breath fogging the flickering barrier. The acid winds had subsided, leaving behind a silence so complete it hummed in his molars. Lucille lay across his knees, her fuel gauge ticking like a countdown. He pressed a palm to the ground. The basalt pulsed hot and arrhythmic, like the throat of a dying animal. Movement. Not the Krang, not yet. The planet itself was shifting, tectonic plates grinding in a slow, spiteful waltz. Hank's squad slept fitfully behind him. Doc Rivas curled around her medkit, Nguyen's face buried in his tool harness, Cole's fingers twitching against her rifle, as if plucking invisible strings. He envied their rest. Sleep for him had become a house fire he no longer had the courage to enter. The first geyser erupted without sound. A spire of viridian acid tore through the basalt 50 yards west, its edges shimmering with heat distortion. Hank was already moving, his boots crunching over brittle rock. He kicked Cole's foot, not gently, up. Now. They ran east, the ground fracturing underfoot. Nguyen lagged, his prosthetic leg screeching. Doc Rivas hooked an arm under his shoulder, her augmented lungs hissing like steam valves. Cole sprinted ahead, youth and terror lending her speed, until Hank grabbed her tack vest. Slow. Watch the cracks. She nodded, sweat carving clean lines through the grime on her face. How do you know where? The rocks sing before they break, he said. Though the truth was simpler, Jakarta had taught him to hear the silence between heartbeats, the pause before detonation. The gazers pursued them, a jagged fence of boiling poison herding the squad toward a skeletal ridge. Hank's HUD flashed warnings. Hydrofluoric acid levels rising, suit integrity at 78%. Cole's breath came in wet hitches, too fast, too shallow. He wanted to tell her to steady, to breathe through her nose, but survival, like sin, was a solitary sacrament. At the ridge's base, they found the corpse, a Krang scout, half melted, its obsidian spikes reduced to nubs, acid pooled in its hollowed chest, smoking. Nguyen prodded it with a wrench. Ambush? No. Doc Rivas knelt, her gloved finger tracing the wound's edges. Self-inflicted, bit through its own venom sac. When the acid hit, Cole gagged. Hank studied the corpse's face, what remained of it. The Krang's jaws were frozen mid-snarl, teeth like shattered cathedral glass. Even they bow to this place, he thought. What hubris made them think we wouldn't? He stripped the corpse's spikes, their bases still warm. Rivas, can you scent the resin from these? She blinked, slow as an owl. Maybe, if we roast them at 900 Kelvin. Nguyen, build a crucible. The engineer scowled. With what? Hank unslung Lucille. With fire. The forge they built was a blasphemy. A nest of Krang spikes lashed together with Cole's hair ties, and blessed by Lucille's flame. Hank played a D minor chord, the feedback wail coaxing the spikes to a molten glow. Nguyen tongued the gaps in his teeth, watching the metal weep. Too brittle, it'll crack under. Add the marshmallows, Hank said. Cole froze. What? The sugar, it'll carbonize, make the alloy flexible. She emptied the bag, her hands trembling. The mellows blackened, fused, became a syrup that stank of childhood and napalm. When the resin cooled, they daubed it on their suits, improvised armor, glistening like beetle carapaces. Nguyen tested a pauldron. Not bad for a pyromaniac. Hank ignored him. Cole's eyes lingered, bright with something worse than admiration, hope. He turned away. Hope was a gas leak. Let it pool too long, and the whole world would blow. The asteroid field began at noon. No warning, no distant rumble. One moment, the sky was a scabbed yellow. The next it birthed a hailstorm of burning rock. The first meteor struck 20 yards left, shattering the basalt into shrapnel. Doc Rivas went down. Her visor cracked. Nguyen dragged her behind a boulder, shouting over the cacophony. We need cover. No cover. Hank craned his neck. The meteors fell in a spiral pattern, drawn to the planet's magnetic source. They're homing. We're the goddamn target. Cole pressed her back to his. He felt her heartbeat through their suits. A frantic bird trapped in a ribcage. What's the play, Sarge? Lucille's neck fit snug against his palm. The answer was a live wire in his teeth. We give the planet a better song. He stepped into the storm. The guitar's opening riff was a physical thing. A sawtooth wave that bent the air. Feedback screamed through the pickups, as Hank hammered a 7/4 rhythm, his boots kicking up plumes of ash. The meteors veered, drawn to the seismic thrum of amplified distortion. Cole shouted something lost in the roar. Jakarta, he thought. The schoolhouse roof buckling, the children's choir still singing. A meteor grazed his shoulder. Molten rock seared his suit. He kept playing. Nguyen joined him, jury-rigged plasma torch in hand. The engineer carved a trench into the basalt, his movements precise, desperate. 10 seconds. Hank's fingers bled. The frets smeared red. Now, they leapt into the trench as the largest meteor struck Lucille's soundwave epicenter. The impact triggered a chain reaction. Fissures split the plane, vomiting lava. The asteroid swarm plunged into the molten sea. Nguyen laughed, wild and unhinged. Then he looked down. His left arm ended at the elbow. He said, as if noticing a misplaced wrench. The stump gleamed, cauterized by plasma. Cole retched. Doc Rivas scrambled for her medkit. Hank gripped Nguyen's shoulder. Why? The engineer grinned, teeth stained with nicotine. Saw the math. 1 arm for 4 lives. Good trade. No, Hank wanted to say. Trades require consent. But the words drowned in the afterburn of memory. Smoke and a little girl's shoe in the Jakarta rubble. Nightfall brought a different kind of trial. They sheltered in a cavern, its walls studded with bioluminescent fungi that pulsed like dying stars. Cole took first watch. Hank pretended to sleep, listening to her breath hitch with every distant howl. When she finally spoke, it was to the dark. You think they're scared? The Krang. Scared's the wrong word. He opened his eyes. The fungi cast her face in cobalt and shadow. They're confused. We don't fit their scripture. She chewed her lip. Are we going to die here? Yes. The truth bald and brutal. She flinched. But he continued. We'll die wrong. Laughing. Roasting their sacred bats on a stick. Making them doubt every fucking axiom in their lava-blasted Bible. A smile flickered. That why you brought the marshmallows? No. He closed his eyes again. I brought those for me. The ambush came at the cave's heart. A Krang scout. Wounded. Its spikes chipped. It lunged from the shadows. Claws aimed at Cole's throat. Hank tackled it. The impact driving the air from his lungs. They rolled a tangle of rage and keratin. The scout's breath reeked of sulfur and burnt copper. Kill it. Lucille was too far. His knife found the Krang's throat, but stopped. The scout froze. Its eyes molten gold widened. A low whine vibrated through its chest. Fear. Hank hesitated. Jakarta's ghost wailed in his ears. Burn them all. Burn yourself. He let go. The scout scrambled back, hissing. For 3 heartbeats, they stared, predator to predator, survivor to survivor. Then it fled. Cole's rifle trembled. Why? Hank wiped his blade. Mercy's a weapon too. The infection revealed itself at dawn. Cole's left eye had gone milky. She hid it, but Doc Rivas saw. The medic's voice was a serrated whisper. Brain parasite. Krang bioweapon. Hank knelt beside the rookie. Her good eye pleaded. Don't. How long? He asked. Hours. Maybe less. Nguyen stared at his stump. Can we cut it out? No. Cole unholstered her sidearm, clicked the safety off, handed it to Hank. Do it, she said. His fingers remembered the weight. Jakarta's pistol. The children's laughter. Wait. Doc Rivas unzipped her medkit. A syringe glinted. Neural inhibitor. Stolen from Federation stocks. This'll kill the parasite. Also her. Cole took it. How long will I last? 10 minutes. Maybe 20. The rookie met Hank's stare. Enough time to matter. He wanted to lie. To promise heroics. A cure. A miracle. But the truth was the only currency he had left. Yes. Cole injected herself. The serum hissed through the chamber. She exhaled. A sound like a page tearing. Make it mean something, she said. Hank's throat burned. I will. They marched into the wastes. Cole's breaths growing ragged. The Krang citadel loomed. A black ziggurat. Bleeding lava. Hank's HUD marked the next trial. Ambient temp. 900 degrees Celsius. Survival probability. 0.7%. Lucille's strings bit his fingers. The marshmallows, half melted, clung to his hip. Somewhere behind them, a scout watched. Let it see, Hank thought. Let them all see how monsters are made. Chapter 3. The Krang citadel rose from the wastes like a serrated prayer. Its obsidian spires, bleeding rivulets of lava, that stained the sky the color of cauterized flesh. Sergeant Major Hank O'Reilly adjusted the straps of Lucille's harness. The guitar's weighed a familiar penance against his back. The air here tasted different, thick with the metallic tang of impending violence, a static charge that made the fillings in his teeth hum. Cole stumbled beside him, her breath a wet rattle. The neural inhibitor had bought her time, but time on Nightmare was a currency that corroded as you held it. Her milky eyes stared ahead, unblinking, while the other still held a shard of the girl who'd asked about heroes. Make it mean something. The words looped in Hank's skull, a broken record scoring the rhythm of his march. He'd made that promise once before, in Jakarta, as the schoolhouse timbers groaned and the flames licked his boots. Back then, he'd chosen fire. Now,
Fire was all he had left. The ground sloped upward, basalt giving way to jagged scree that shifted like rotten teeth underfoot. Doc Rivas trudged ahead, her cybernetic lungs emitting a low industrial whine. Nguyen brought up the rear, his remaining arm cradling a jury-rigged plasma charge. No one spoke. Words had become luxuries they couldn't afford. Each syllable a calorie burned, a second closer to collapse. A scream fractured the silence. Not human, not Krang, something primal and multi-throated, echoing through the citadel's shadow. Cole's rifle snapped up, her infected eye leaking a viscous silver thread. Bats, she rasped. They materialized from the citadel's leeward side, a swarm of leathern wings and needle-fanged maws, their bodies glistening with acid sweat. Hank's HUD flickered. Species unidentified. Toxicity. Lethal. Recommended action. Retreat. Retreat. The word curdled in his gut. Jakarta had recommended retreat too. Lucille slid into his hands, her fretboard, warm as living skin. Rivas ignite the perimeter. Nguyen shield Cole. The medic didn't hesitate. Her bone saw sparked against a Krang spike, casting a magnesium-bright arc. The bats recoiled, their chorus rising to a shriek. Hank struck a chord, a raw open G, that sent a wall of flame rippling outward. The swarm parted, then regrouped, diving with kamikaze fervor. Burn them, Jakarta whispered. Burn it all. But Cole was shouting, her voice slicing through the noise. The acid, it's flammable. Hank saw it then, the droplets spattering from the bat's wings, eating into the basalt with a hiss. Chemistry as a second language. He grinned, all teeth. Nguyen G. The marshmallows. Now. The engineer lobbed the bag into the inferno. Sugar and nitrocotton collided, the blast wave ripping through the swarm. Bats combusted mid-dive, their bodies becoming comets, their acid sweat a pyrotechnic slurry. The air reeked of caramelized venom and burnt feathers. And then, silence. The surviving bats fled. The squad stood in a ring of smoldering rock, their armor streaked with soot and alien viscera. Cole laughed, a sound like broken glass, and sank to her knees. Did we just deep fry them? Hank stared at the carnage. Flames licked the edges of a nearby fissure, casting hellish shadows on the citadel walls. His fingers throbbed where the strings had bitten into calluses. We're adaptable, he said. Doc Rivas knelt, collecting a bat carcass with clinical detachment. Biomass is biomass. We eat. Nguyen snorted. You first. But Hank was already moving. Lucille's flame reduced to a pilot light. He skewered the bat on a Krang spike, held it over the fire. The meat blackened, curled, emitted a smell that was equal parts sulfur and county fair. Cole watched, her good eye reflecting the dance of the flames. You're really gonna. Survival's a full-time job, kid. He rotated the spike. Rule 1. Never waste a meal. She hesitated, then pulled a marshmallow from her pocket, crushed, half melted, impaled it on her combat knife. Rule 2. Add dessert. The moment hung, absurd and fragile. Doc Rivas produced a ration tin of chocolate, her face as close to softness as augmetics allowed. Nguyen muttered about culinary treason, but surrendered a sleeve of hardtack. They ate. Hank's first bite was ashen defiance, the meat stringy, bitter. Cole's s'more dripped down her chin, a grotesque parody of innocence. He almost told her to wipe it off, almost. Then she began to sing. It wasn't kumbaya, not at first, just a hum, tuneless and raw, vibrating through her ruined lungs. But the rhythm found its way, a cadence from some half-remembered campfire, a hymn for the damned. Doc Rivas tapped her bone saw against basalt. Nguyen beat the plasma charge like a war drum, and Hank played. Lucille's flame dimmed to ember glow, her notes a bluesy lament that wove through Cole's rasp. The citadel walls absorbed the sound, threw it back distorted. He didn't know when the Krang drones arrived, didn't care. Let them watch, let them see. The Krang had expected warriors. What they got was a choir. In the citadel's control spire, the Krang commander watched the feed, its claws denting the obsidian console. The human's defiance was illogical, impossible. Survival was pain. Pain was purity. Yet these creatures, these soft things, had turned agony into. The commander lacked the word. Galactic Common had no term for joy. A subordinate hissed, mandibles quivering. They defile the trial. No, the commander rasped. The feed zoomed on the human leader O'Reilly. His face was a ruin of scars and soot, but his fingers moved across the weapon guitar with something akin to reverence. They redefine it. The subordinate recoiled. Redefinition was heresy. On screen, the humans laughed as they ate. The sound was a virus, burrowing into the commander's exoskeleton. It scratched, it itched. Cole's voice gave out first. She sagged against Hank, her fever-hot brow pressing into his shoulder. "Tell me about Jakarta," she whispered. The flames blurred. He could lie, should lie, but the truth was the last gift he could give. "There was a schoolhouse," he said. The words tasted of phosgene and regret. They'd rigged it with incendiaries. Kids inside. I hesitated. Her hand found his sticky with marshmallow residue. "Why?" "I wanted to save them." "Did you?" He looked at her, really looked, and saw the question she wasn't asking. "Will you save me?" "No." She nodded, as if she'd known all along. "But you saved this." Her finger traced the scene. Nguyen arguing with Doc Rivas over the last chocolate square. The drones circling like confused vultures. The bat's ashes swirling in a lazy spiral. "This isn't salvation," he said. "No." She smiled. "It's better." Her hand went limp. The inhibitor's timer beeped. A flat-line dirge. Hank didn't move, didn't breathe. The squad froze, their feast suddenly funeral. Doc Rivas closed Cole's eye. Nguyen stood, his silhouette a broken monolith against the Citadel's glare. "Orders, Sarge?" Hank cradled Lucille. The fire in his chest had no name, no temperature. It simply was. "We finished the song." They carried Cole's body into the Citadel's throat, where the air shimmered with convection heat. The Krang awaited them in a lava arena, their spikes quivering with anticipation. The commander stepped forward, claws unsheathed. Hank set Lucille down, reached into his pack. The s'more was pitiful, squashed, oozing, a child's craft project. He tossed it at the commander's feet. "Eat." The Krang recoiled. "This is no weapon." "Wrong." Hank lit a match. "It's a memory." The chocolate melted. The marshmallow bubbled. The commander stared, transfixed. As the treat blackened, a tiny supernova in edible form. Somewhere, a human would have laughed. The Krang commander did something worse. It understood. Chapter 4. The lava arena pulsed like an open wound. Rivers of molten rock carving hieroglyphs of annihilation into the citadel floor. Sergeant Major Hank O'Reilly stood at its edge, the heat gnawing through his patched suit. Lucille's weight a grounding force against the tremors in his hands. The Krang commander loomed across the chasm, its obsidian spikes trembling with a predator's impatience, eyes like smelted coins locked onto him. Behind Hank, the remnants of his squad waited. Doc Rivas with her bone saw slack at her side. Nguyen's hollow stare fixed on the plasma charge strapped to his chest. Cole's body wrapped in a tarp that flapped like a shroud in the sulphurous wind. "Make it mean something." The words coiled in Hank's ribs, sharper than the commander's claws. Jakarta had been ash and screams. This would be different. He reached into his pack, fingers brushing the crumpled foil of a s'more, its marshmallow oozing through cracks in the chocolate. A child's treat, a lunatic's gambit. The commander lunged, lava splashing beneath its talons. Hank didn't flinch. He lobbed the s'more in a lazy arc. It landed at the Krang's feet, a pathetic splat of sugar and char. "Eat," Hank said. The arena stilled. The commander tilted its head, a predator dissecting a riddle. Galactic Common had no word for hospitality, no verb for sharing. Hank lit a match, the flame trembling in his cupped palm. "You wanna survive. Learn to live first." The match fell. The s'more ignited, a tiny supernova of caramelized sugar, chocolate pooling like liquid shadow. The Krang recoiled, mandibles clattering. Its warriors edged back, spikes retracting. Hank's pulse thrummed in his ears. Jakarta's flames, Cole's laugh, the way the bats had crackled like festival fireworks. The commander stooped, claws hovering over the treat. A drip of molten marshmallow clung to its talon. It lifted the mess to its maw, hesitated, then bit. The reaction was instantaneous. The Krang shuddered, a full-body convulsion, its exoskeleton rippling as if invaded by parasites. A low guttural whine seeped from its thorax, not pain, awareness. The sucrose, the cocoa, the carbon. It wasn't poison, it was memory, a flavor that spoke of campfires and lullabies, of species that clung to joy like a birthright. The commander dropped to its knees. Behind it, warriors broke ranks, hissing, clawing at their own spikes as if the sugar had infected them. Hank stepped forward. Lucille slung across his back. Yield, he said. Not as a command, but a confession. The Krang's voice cracked like cooling magma. This madness is victory. No. Hank glanced at Cole's shroud. It's a eulogy. The Galactic Federation's tribunal chamber was a mausoleum of white noise and sterile light. Hank stood before the council, holograms of alien faces flickering like faulty pixels. They'd scrubbed the nightmare grime off him, but the scent of sulfur clung, a stubborn ghost. The Krang forfeited, droned the Yeshalark ambassador, its voice a dentist drill. But your methods, unorthodox, barbaric. A hologram displayed the battlefield, s'mores melting in lava, Cole's corpse beside a half-eaten bat skewer. The council recoiled. Hank said nothing. Let them gawk, let them squirm. Effective immediately. The Solar continued. Terran confectionery, classified as Class 12 psychological hazard. S'mores, prohibited. Nguyen snorted in the gallery. Doc Rivas didn't blink. Hank turned to leave. Your planet's status, the Solar hissed, elevated. You are Apex survivors. He paused at the door. We always were. Cole's hometown smelled of pine resin and diesel. Hank's boots crunched over gravel as he approached the prefab house. Cole's letter in his pocket. Her mother answered, eyes raw, hands clutching a photo. Cole at 12, grinning beside a rusted swing set. Ma'am. Hank held out the letter. She wrote this, didn't read it.
The woman took it, trembling. Was she brave? He said. Stupid. Human. She hugged him. He stood rigid, Cole's ghost between them. The Krang volcano had become a pilgrimage site. Tourists in hazard suits roasting marshmallows over lava vents, vendors hawking authentic acid bat skewers. Hank climbed past them, Lucille strapped to his back. At the summit, he struck a chord, the feedback howl scattering the gulls. Doc Rivas found him there, her augmetic lungs wheezing. Why marshmallows, Hank? He watched a child laugh, her treat catching fire. Fire's only half the story. The medic frowned. The rest's make-believe. He played a lullaby, the notes bleeding into the wind. Below, the crowd sang Kumbaya. The volcano, once a crucible of death, now hums with off-key hymns and the smell of burnt sugar, a monument to the madness of hope. They came for a duel, they got a cookout.